Hello, Malty Manx Mystery Malt Moment Mentioner, and thank you to Artificial Frequencies, who has provided the malt mention here in the Bothy, somewhere in the Irish Sea, for Ralphie Review 976 extras, in which I provide perspective, information, advice, opinions, and stuff that's going to help you with your whisky journey, or your rum journey, or your bourbon journey, whichever journey you're taking with an alcoholic beverage. I'm here to help. Because so long as you're not prone to alcoholism, it's a journey worth making. It's a journey in smell and taste. And if you are prone to alcoholism, do not make this journey. Just do not do it, for the sake of your health, for the sake of your future, for the sake of your family, and for the sake of all the people that care for you. End of. Alcohol is always an option. It's an option I quite enjoy, actually. I've just reviewed a particularly nice single malt. Did I say nice? I'll go better than that. An absolutely delicious single malt. Kilkerran 16-year-old. Very worthwhile. Really interesting distillery, focusing on quality. And that brings me to my main subject in this extras, which is the formula. All right, now the formula is, we're on a journey. We don't want too much disappointment with bad purchases and misspending of our money, which we've already paid tax on, and we're all about to pay more tax because it's alcohol, and that's just the way it is. I mean, it's no wonder so many people are brewing their own these days and taking a shortcut and avoiding all this tax. It's real life. And we're in pursuit of the formula. I'm going to call it the formula because it's like E equals MC squared. Now that's a formula. It's developed by Albert Einstein, famous scientist. And it's energy equals mass times capacity. MC squared, mass capacity squared. Rightio. Very simple formula, and certainly in this particular dimension it seems to work. But as you can tell, I'm no physicist. So we do need a formula for when we're gaining a bit momentum, because in the early days when we start out buying bottles, we're not spending too much money because we're starting at the beginning, and we're buying in perhaps a local supermarket or online or in a general liquor store, which doesn't have a big specialist collection of whiskies, rums or whatever. It has a general stock, and we kind of look up and down and we kind of go onto our mobile devices and then we check out, what's the general review of this? Fine, I'll go for it. And we end up with something like Johnnie Walker Black Label, or Glenfiddich 12-year-old, or Glenmorangie 12-year-old. Or if you're unlucky, you'll maybe end up with a non-age statement Jura or Ardmore Legacy. And there's many, many people who are put off whisky right at the beginning of the journey because they start off with bad experiences. Because there's some of the worst, okay, I'll change that. Some of the most basic bottles of whisky that are available are the ones that we see in shops and shelves, and we recognise the brands, and we see them in bars. It's another important point of reference. And so we know we've got to start somewhere. And if we can get past the initial shock of our first experience of Laphroaig 10-year-old, or it could be worse, it could be Laphroaig Select, we start to have a little bit of curiosity develop, and this will happen to maybe 2 people in 100. So 98 people out of 100, they're quite happy to buy maybe 1 or 2 bottles of whisky a year or if they're out for a meal or a special occasion, out for the New Year celebrations in a bar, then they're going to have a wee dram of whiskey from the bar, probably poured out an optic these days, and it's in a tumbler, and it's got ice in it, and they're perfectly happy, they're perfectly content with that, because their main tipple of choice at the end of the day is either some sparkling white wine or vodka. And that is as far as most people get. However, there's the 2 out of 100 who continue that journey, and the way things are going, it's going to become 3 out of 100. Because the general rule of evolution, of economic evolution, is that as people generally acquire more wealth, they become more fussy how they spend it, because we can only consume so much in life. Despite the adverts, despite the white noise of ambient pressure put on us to shut up, earn, work, pay tax, consume, to go out and earn more and pay more taxes, you know the routine because you're subject to it yourself. So you've got this 3 out of 100 people who decide to actually go into a more specialist whisky shop, or perhaps go into an online whisky shop and buy something a little more unusual. And as they do so, it's out with the mobile device. There we go. Very, very handy thing to have these days. Out with the mobile device, and they'll basically just do a quick search for what is said about a particular whisky whose brand they don't recognise. And there's so many out there, hundreds of brands in one genre alone. Even mezcal, if you're getting interested in mezcal, there's so many more brands than there used to be, and it's confusing. It really is bewildering, because you've got to ask yourself, well, which are the good ones, and how much real diversity of smell and taste are we going to find within them? Because you have a situation in the United States, for example, where one quiet, invisible distillery is providing a whole load of brands under different labels that you don't even know they're all made at the one distillery. And they're not telling lies or anything, they're just misdirecting, willfully, deliberately misdirecting through lack of available disclosure and information. And that's the way it is. We've got to understand this, because as we make the journey and we're spending more money more frequently on what we want to buy, and we're involved in this flavour chase, and we hear about one particular brand that we haven't tried, so we go out looking for it, we see a bottle, and then we buy it and we're disappointed and we wonder why, and then we go online and we find out that, well, you don't buy that age statement or that non-age statement version, you buy this age statement, you buy this batch number, you look for this bottling code hidden on almost invisible lettering stamped onto the glass of the bottle. This is what you look for, so as you can narrow it down to the specific batch of a specific age statement, which happens quite by default. Well, I'll change that. It happens by design. Every single bottling of whisky is done by design. Every single one. But by default, every now and again, you get what's called a bad batch, in which the producer knowingly bottles an inferior version of their whisky and puts it out there just so as the market of consumers will just absorb it. And that's cynical. And in my opinion, that's unfair on your customer. And the consequence is you start to lose your reputation, particularly the more often you get these bad batches. So what starts out as a simple journey starts to become more complex, because there are complicating factors. You go online, you check out reviews and Reddit and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, and you'll watch a few videos and you'll say, you know, these are interesting information and these people look like experts. No, we're not. Nobody online is an expert. Everybody online is giving a personal opinion from the pretext of being a commentator and being, to a certain extent, experienced and informed. It's as simple as that. Because the thing is, with experts will tell you what they want you to hear and not necessarily what you need to know, which is where the commentator, the enthusiast comes in. Because we may be flawed in some of our appraisals at time, due primarily to our own preference of smell and taste. But by and large, it's advice and experiences shared sincerely, genuinely and sincerely. And then what you've got to watch is that if someone is accepting free gifts as a commentator, that's quite reasonable so long as it's declared. But I put it to you this way, you will find that free donated bottles of whiskey or any other spirits given to online commentators are done through marketing departments who are increasingly desperate to sell what they produce. And they just want a little bit of online bling to add a bit of sparkle to their lacklustre little gemstone of a bottling. It's as simple as that. But for the commentator who gets a little bit of hospitality, so long as it's disclosed, so long as there's transparency, do you know what? It's fine. That's what matters, because you really struggle to get this transparency from marketing departments. Of course, it depends which ones they are. You'll find that small distilleries tend to be more practical about things. They don't get caught up in flannel of presentation and the utter mediocrity of the ongoing presentation of cultural appropriated cliches, which at times border on racism. There you go. You're not going to hear that from many onliners. But it's true. The cliches of cultural appropriation, which it starts off when we're starting our journey as something that's mildly amusing and entertaining and we can have a laugh about. But as time goes on, when you see it, how cynically it's manipulated purely for the greed of profits from people who are pumping in the same fashion as, in my opinion, crypto scammers. They're pumping up their prices. They're presenting these disingenuous, distractive baubles. But if they sell, great. But I won't be buying and you shouldn't be buying. I tell you what, don't you find this all a little bit confusing? There's a lot to navigate here in the landscape of spirits appreciation. And this is why you need a wee notebook. You need to be jotting things down to help keep a clear head that you control your budget and you buy discriminatory purchases in which, before you pass your money over, you examine whether you are leaving it to chance because you've been swayed by the white noise of mixed messages saying, buy this, buy this, buy this, or are you making your own mind up through more informed sources of information? So get a pen, get a little notepad and note it down. For example, Isle of Arran, generally good, generally reliable, generally consistent batches. Start with a 10-year-old. Brilliant. In other words, when you go out and spend your money, or someone comes to you looking for advice, you can pass your information on. And do you know what the consequences from keeping your little diary, keeping your notebook, keeping your travelogue? The consequence is that we start to protect the availability of good liquor at accessible prices into the future, because we're gatekeepers for the reputation of good quality spirits. Ultimately, we decide through our own experiences, and we're not experts, and we're not super noses, and we're not got super taste buds, because frankly, at the end of the day, It's not that important. It really isn't. The problem for someone that's got super, super sensitive nose is they just end up far too fussy, because they can't overlook little tiny flaws and blemishes in standard bottlings, which the rest of us with our average senses barely even notice, and therefore we just carry on and enjoy the malt moment. Lucky us. Here's to those with average senses of smell and taste, because I'm one of them. And the only reason I can wax a little bit lyrical in my tasting notes is quite simply experience. It's all down to decades of experience. And when you're in the position, as I am, of opening a brand new bottle of spirits every week, because I'm located in a location where I have the most incredible access to an incredible variety of spirits, I'm in a very fortunate position in that I can share that experience with you to help you have more confidence in your experience, so as that when you log it down, when you keep your notes are going to be accurate, valuable, and of considerable assistance to you in obtaining that magic formula, your E equals MC squared, which is called S equals... I should have written this down. S equals V times Q. That's what it is. S equals V times Q. I'm going to write that down and show you. It's important. S. This is the whiskey formula. S equals V times Q, S being satisfaction, V being value, and Q being quality. Here we are. Satisfaction equals value for money times quality of delivery. Hey, not even Einstein came up with that formula. I have, here in the bothy. Cheers.